Hello everyone, we're living in the 21st century, and looks like we've learned to coexist with wild animals. Well, you know we don't get eaten by saber-toothed tigers, and whales don't sink our ships. However, there are creatures on the planet that live side by side with humans, and still pose a serious danger to us. Snakes. Frightening, cold, and venomous, they live everywhere but Antarctica. Every continent has its own killer snakes, and its own sad statistics. That's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get it on. Snakes in Africa. If you picture people living near snakes, you probably think of the residents of African countries first of all. There are 4 families of venomous snakes in Africa, but vipers are responsible for 60% of all bites. In some regions, this figure reaches 90%. It's like they have a monopoly on people or something. According to scientists, the puff adder is responsible for most deaths. It can be found all over Africa, often lives near people, and is extremely aggressive. Most snakes bite people on plantations, and there's a good reason for that. These places attract small animals, which are usually prey to these snakes, and people became an obstacle between them and their meal. Mambas, cobras, and some other species can live in an area from 1 to 2 square kilometers. These snakes are big enough to protect their land from anyone, including humans, and they're very persistent about it. Snake bites in Africa usually occur during the rainy season when the snakes are most active. Approximately 1 million attacks occur in the sub-Saharan Africa, resulting in 500,000 infestations, 25,000 deaths, and another 25,000 cases of irreversible effect on the body. Unfortunately, more than 50% of the victims don't get proper treatment either, so the consequences are terrible. Snakes in Asia. Of all Asian countries, India suffers the most from snakes. At least 81,000 bites occur here every year, and 11,000 of those are lethal. Bangladesh holds the second place, as in India, most of the victims live in rural areas as they are farmers, fishermen, and hunters. Often snakes bite people in their homes, as most snakes are night animals and poor people have to sleep on the floor. We can't even imagine how terrible it must be falling asleep and not waking up because some venomous creature visits you at night. An epidemiological study discovered that there are about 8,000 bites per year in Bangladesh, with a 22% mortality rate, one of the highest in the world, and there are only 6 types of venomous snakes in Bangladesh, just so you know. However, non-venomous snakes are the ones that bite the most, and about 40% of potentially dangerous bites show no signs of poisoning at all. Apparently, everything depends on the mood of the particular snake or something like that. The situation is better in the rest of Asia, and although about 100 deadly bites occur each year, it isn't much compared to the number of snakes and their living conditions. But let's not forget that not only venomous snakes can be dangerous. In Southeast Asia, there are reports of large human-eating pythons, although people used to exaggerate the threat. In the Philippines, however, more than a quarter of Eta people reported that pythons attacked them at least once. Although there's no guarantee that a giant snake was trying to eat them, the information is still somehow alarming. Snakes in Australia. Many people believe that in Australia you are extremely likely to be bitten by a venomous snake and die from it. However, there are actually more spider bites and jellyfish stings registered here per year. But stay alert though. If you believe these statistics, which you should, snake venom kills most people in Australia. Australia is certainly a unique country, and many living creatures live here and nowhere else. It's also the only continent where venomous snakes make up the majority of the species. In other words, if you encounter a snake there, you should definitely stay away from it because there's every chance it's venomous. There are no vipers though in Australia, which is why Mother Nature has created many local, extremely dangerous snakes. Apparently, nature has worked especially hard on the eastern brown snake. It's common in both rural and urban areas, is crazy venomous, and is responsible for about 60% of snake-related deaths. However, it's not as bad as it looks. Despite the fact that many Australian snakes possess an unusually powerful venom, wide access to the antidote made it difficult to die from a bite. It's believed that in Australia, up to 1,500 snake bites occur annually, and about 200 of them are serious enough to need an antidote. Snakes kill 2 to 4 people each year, but let's face it, given the number of venomous creatures on the continent, it's not that many. Snakes in Europe. Almost all European venomous snakes belong to the viper family. Scientists have determined a few particularly aggressive species too: the rock viper, the horned viper, the asp viper, and the snub-nosed viper. Yes, there is an alarming variety of vipers, and although there are about 741 million people living in Europe, snake bites cause only 1 to 7 deaths each year. The reason is that most people have access to healthcare, as well as antidotes, and the fact that local snakes aren't venomous enough to kill a person instantly. However, some researchers believe that these statistics might not be that accurate, because people tend to underestimate the numbers that scare them. The most realistic estimate is that the frequency of snake bites in Europe, including the European part of Russia and Turkey, is 1.06 per 100,000 inhabitants. However, only about 15% of these bites are serious and can threaten human life. Nevertheless, there is a rather specific problem in European countries: people getting bitten by venomous snakes kept in captivity. Often such cases can not only spoil all the carefully gathered statistics, but also make doctors nervous, because people like to keep exotic pets at home. And what if your patient has a rare snake and needs some antidote that can only be found somewhere far away in Australia? Snakes in North America. Of the 120 native snake species in North America, only 20 are dangerous to humans. Sounds pretty good, right? But there's a catch. In all the states of America, except Alaska and Hawaii, there is at least one species of venomous snake. According to the statistics, up to 95% of all deaths from snake bites in the United States are caused by rattlesnakes, and most of them occur in the Southwest, because more rattlesnakes means more snake bites. Nevertheless, it's not so easy to be bitten by a venomous snake in North America. On average, only 4 out of 100,000 people face this problem, and about 1 person in 65 million dies. So just avoid vipers, because in 99% of cases, people are bitten by them. The other 1% or even less are coral snakes, but they're not that big of a problem, so we probably shouldn't even mention them. But what about other countries? It is estimated that at least 28,000 snake bites occur in Mexico every year, although only a small number of them lead to death. The total number of snake bites in Central America is estimated at 4,000 or 5,000 per year, although as in other parts of the world, these figures are probably underestimated. One thing is certain though, vipers are also the main source of danger in this region, so keep calm and just stay away from them. Snakes in South America. Perhaps after Australia, South America is the region most people would think of when talking about snakes. The climate and living conditions are perfect for snakes, which is why in many South American countries, they can be found literally anywhere. For example, in Brazil, you could be driving on the road and suddenly come across a huge anaconda crossing the street.
Ei, para lá, para lá, para lá, para lá! Ferreira vai dentro do teu carro aí, sai daí! Rapaz, faz tempo que tá tentando atravessar, ó.
Fortunately for the snake, locals weren't scared and helped it across the road. Meanwhile, no one even knows for sure how many people fall victim to venomous reptiles each year. Estimates of the number of deaths caused by snake bites, based on data from hospitals and the Ministry of Health, are considered inaccurate. For example, according to some information, between 3,000 and 4,000 deaths were documented in 1954 and up to 5,000 in 1998. Sounds alarming, even though it's not the most recent data. Isn't medical progress helping in this situation though? Actually, there are other reasons. Most people living in rural areas prefer to go to shamans for help, rather than see a real doctor and get an actual antidote. For example, 54% of patients admitted to hospitals after being bitten by venomous snakes in northwest Colombia had already been treated by a shaman before. How many people haven't been able to get proper treatment? Anyway, it's hard to compile statistics under these conditions, and although the probability of a venomous snake bite in South America is quite high, it rarely happens among tourists, so don't worry if it's your next holiday destination. In addition, the spread of antidotes reduced the number of deaths caused by the most dangerous tropical rattlesnakes in Brazil from 72 to 12%. Thank you, science. Hey, stop being lazy, it's time to use that brain of yours. Welcome to Brain Time. Incredible facts from the past, the present, and even the future. The power of nature and wild animals, amazing facts and unsolved mysteries. You'll find all this and much more here. Subscribe now, you won't regret it.